What if I didn't say that? What if I was like, remain standing for the rest of the time, please? Here's a question. I want to start off with this question. How do you define failure? How do you define failure? A few weeks back, we were in Mark 6, and we talked about John the Baptist. And we talked about success and how success means faithfulness. Meaning that you can go through the ups, you can go through the downs, but if you remain committed to Christ, remain committed to what's most important, you'll still be successful through the ups and the downs. But so what does that mean for failure? How would you define failure? You know, I heard it put this way once, and this has always stuck with me, is that failure is being successful at things that don't matter. Failure is being successful at things that don't matter. In other words, you can give all your time and energy, all your resources, all your money, all your heart to something, and even if you are incredibly successful at it, if it doesn't matter, then it's a waste. Sometimes we think of failing simply as, well, I'm trying to get toward this very important thing and I haven't managed to do it. But you can also fail by fully, wildly succeeding at something that has no importance at all. Failure is being successful at things that don't matter. And you already know this. You know this is true because you have people in your life, you have friends, you have family that you've watched chase the unimportant things. And some of them, maybe they're smart, maybe they're gifted, maybe they're set up well, they have opportunity, and they become wildly successful at these things. These unimportant things, these things that don't matter. And as you watch them get more and more successful at the things that don't matter, oftentimes you watch the important things begin to fail. You watch their family and their relationship with God and their purity and their health. You watch these things erode and break down. So you know this is true. You've seen this. You've also seen this in your own life. I know because you're a lot like me. And some of you are like, how dare you? But it's true. A lot of us are cut from the same cloth. You and I can look back and see, maybe they're short, maybe they're long seasons of pursuing and driving for success in an area that doesn't matter. And we look back at those times and we don't call them successes. Sometimes we try to spin it and say, well, at least I learned something. Those lessons get mighty expensive after a while. We look back at those and we call them failures. We go, if I could do it again, I would do it this way. I would do it this way. I wouldn't spend it there. I wouldn't try to aim at that. I would redesign it. I would go about it differently. Why? Because you failed at it. And in some regard, there may have been some success, but overall, there are seasons of our life we look back at with regret. And because you and I have gone through that, we have this little fear in the back of our mind. So that when things are quiet, it whispers, but you're just a failure, aren't you? And we have to wrestle with that. But instead of allowing that fear to drive how we think and how we feel and what we do, we're going to ask a better question today. We're going to ask a better question. This morning we're going to ask, am I doing all that I can with all that I have for what's most important? Am I doing all that I can with all that I have for what's most important? Now, I ask this question in this way because it's diagnostic. It's going to force you to answer why things are happening the way they are. You go to the doctor and they diagnose you, right? Some of us are frustrated because we go to doctor after doctor after doctor and they don't diagnose us. They can't find out why things are happening the way they are. They can't find the root. They can't find the cause. And so this question forces us to look at a situation in our life, a decision, a crossroads, an area, and ask, here, am I doing all that I can with all that I have for what's most important? And if you're studying that question, you're thinking about it, you realize, man, there's a lot of ways to fall off that log. I can do some of what I could with all that I have. I could do all that I can, but only give some. Right? I can make myself available this much, and I say, okay, I'm going to give it 30 minutes a week. I'm going to give it $100 a month. I'm going to give it 5 minutes of my attention. And after that, you know what? I'm not going to do anything else. So we just give a little bit, and we say, oh, I'll give all of that little bit, though. And of course, the overarching question, is any of it worth it? Are we actually aiming at what we should be, at what's most important? Am I doing all that I can with all that I have for what's most important? Now, thinking about us, not just people in the world, but us in this area, I think there's two main whales. Oh boy, it's going to be a long morning, everybody. There's two main ways that people like us fail. One is that we're lazy. And I know in an ag community, some of us are like, how dare you? We're lazy. And I don't mean at work. I mean at some of the most important things. Yeah, we work hard at our job, but then we get home and we're lazy. We get lazy at our marriage. We get lazy at our parenting. We get lazy at our budgeting. We get lazy at our diet. We get lazy at our discipline for the things that are most important. The areas of our life that have a lot riding on them, those areas, you're like, yeah, that's hard. That's a lot of work. I just spent all this work over here at this thing that it's not unimportant, but it's not the most important. I gave it all there, and now I don't have anything left to give to what's most important. So we can be lazy. We can be lazy. I'd say the other area that we as a people here are guilty of is that we don't do all that we can with all that we have. We actually set ourselves up for failure by planning on and intending and promising to do more than we can with more than we have. I'm going to design my life to be more hours than 24 in a day. I'm going to design my week to be more tasks than is humanly possible. I'm going to design my relationships to require more of me than I could possibly give. And I can see some of the elders laughing at me because, anyway. You end up neglecting what's important so you can chase what you could never actually catch. I'm not doing all that I can with what I have for what's most important. But it's interesting. You think about it, and you think about the call on the Christian's life. He's not asking for more than you have. But he's not asking for less than you have either. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more, nothing less. This morning, we're going to be in Mark 14. We're going to be looking at this wonderful story. If you want to turn there and follow along with me. It's this little short scene about this woman. Now, we know that this woman is Mary, the sister of Lazarus, but in Mark, he doesn't name her. I think that's on purpose. He doesn't give her name. And actually, if you look really close, we're going to be introduced in the chronological order here at the wrong spot. He takes this scene, which happened the Saturday before, and he puts it in the middle of the week. Now, he's not lying to us. He tells us, no, this happened before, but he puts it in the order. If you remember, last week we talked about what happened on Wednesday, and now he's taking us back to Saturday. And the reason for that is he's going to contrast who this woman is and what she does with who Judas is and what Judas does. You have this woman who's going to show us that if you give to what's important, it will matter. And Judas, who gives up what's most important for things that don't matter. So starting in verse 1 of Mark chapter 14, it says, 2 days before the Passover and the feast of unleavened bread, the chief priests and the experts in the law were trying to find a way to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. For they said, not during the feast, so there won't be a riot among the people. Now, while Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, reclining at the table, a woman came with an alabaster jar of costly aromatic oil from pure nard. After breaking open the jar, she poured it on his head. But some who were present indignantly said to one another, "Why this waste of expensive perfume? It could have been sold for more than 300 silver coins," which is like the average salary of the average person in that, for an annual income, right, for 1 year. Could have been sold for 300 silver coins and the money given to the poor. So they spoke angrily to her. But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She has done a good service for me. For you will always have the poor with you, and you can do good for them whenever you want, but you will not always have me." She did all that she could. She anointed my body beforehand for burial. And I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus into their hands. When they heard this, they were delighted and promised to give him money. So Judas began to look for an opportunity to betray him. Now, before we jump in, I want to just pause the sermon here for a second. Because when we start talking about things like this, especially when the text references money, people get defensive. People get a little uncomfortable. Now, I don't mind making people uncomfortable. I think we're aware of that. But what I don't want you to do is think that this is primarily about money. It isn't. You're going to miss the point if you think this is about money, right? We read this and we go like, all right, buckle up. Preacher's going to squeeze us. Hold on to your checkbooks. But that's wrong. This isn't primarily about money. It's actually a beautiful parallel to just a couple chapters ago, with the poor widow. Now, if you're here, you would remember the poor widow. She also poured out everything she had. But it was less than a penny. So whether you have absolutely, basically nothing, or you have a fortune at your disposal, God isn't after your money. He's got all the money he needs. He's after your heart. This is about him helping you design your life for true success and to fight off our urge to naturally set up our lives for failure. Right? It's not about money. If you think this is all about, you think about money too much. All right? That's not what this is about. It's about, am I doing all that I can with all that I have for what's most important? So this woman, let's talk about this unnamed woman here for a second. She did all that she could with all that she had for what was most important. She did. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about how she did it. This is how. She elevated the important above the immediate. She elevated the important above the immediate. I want you to think in realistic terms about this scene. It seems really odd to show up and to wash somebody's feet at supper, right? Not normally what happens. At least here. None of you have washed my feet at supper. But there it's not too crazy of an idea, right? They wouldn't bathe all the time very, very regularly like we would. It's a different life, different lifestyle. So think of it almost more like deodorant, this oil, this perfume. It was a cleaning thing. So if you go to the table, and again, they didn't have tables like we did where you sit at chairs. They would have very low tables to the ground, and you kind of like lay on your side, right, with pillows. And so if you get called over and you come over to your buddy's house and you're there laying next to each other and he smells like the manure that he's been out there spreading all day, a little bit of deodorant doesn't sound like a bad idea, right? You're trying to eat. His feet are right here. It's a tough situation. So that whole concept is not a bad deal. But what makes this particularly interesting is the extravagance. It wasn't like, hey, make sure you spray up before you come inside. She herself anointed him. She washed his feet. Imagine washing someone else's feet with soap that cost you your life savings. They would have to mean a lot to you. And even in that moment, it almost feels wasteful, right? Like, how important is this person? Yeah, but in this moment, it's going to be over with, and then it's going to be gone, and like, I just spent all this money on this, whatever you want to call it, tens of thousands of dollars worth of this little cologne that I spilled all over his feet. So you understand here how people looking at that would be like, this is a big deal. This is a big moment right now. You're doing a lot here. Maybe more than you should. You're doing more than you should for Jesus. Well, there's something wrong with that criticism. There's something wrong there. She comes, She does this, and she goes in a single verse. She doesn't talk. Of course, she did. They were arguing with her. She said things, but it wasn't about her being recognized. It was about recognizing Jesus. It was about leaving it all out there for him. That's important, that this unnamed woman says no words in the text. It's not about her. It's not about how incredible she is. It's about doing all that she can with all that she has for what's most important. And she recognized that what's most important is Jesus. Now, but here's a little hypothetical for you. Imagine she didn't. Right? Just play through this in your head. Imagine she didn't pour this out for him. She's been saving this for years, right? Maybe it was passed down to her, like this might have very well been her inheritance, her safety net, if you will, her nest egg. And it's over there on the shelf, and she's been saving it, and maybe she doesn't really even know what for completely, but she just knows, I'm going to save that. And then she feels this pull in her heart. Tonight's the night. Go. You know Jesus is in town. You know he's told you that this is coming up to the end. You know this is important. Now is the time. And she goes, no, I'm going to look so stupid. I'm going to show up. People are going to, no, I'm not going to do it. No, it's going to, that's so much. Jesus is very practical. He wouldn't want me to, pour it out on his feet. Like, that's crazy. So she doesn't. And 6 days later, he dies on the cross for her. You tell me, what do you think she would say the real waste is? Because she would look at that and she would say, I had the opportunity to take this and use it for Jesus. But instead I saved it. I was so successful at saving it, so successful at something that doesn't matter at all. Because now Jesus is gone. And I blew it. I had the opportunity and I missed it. See, when she elevates that important above the immediate, it takes her sacrifice and it makes it matter. We all have immediate needs. We do. Some of them are important. Absolutely. Pay attention to that. But some of them are just more immediate than they are important. I've had conversations where people say, you know what, we shouldn't support missionaries. We have enough needs right here in Phelps County. We have enough going on. My neighbor is this. My brother is that. There's this person down the road. We have enough in our towns. There's enough need here that we don't need to do things out there. And to a certain extent, they're right. There is a lot of need here. We could spend all our time and resources and money focusing on our communities. But what if God is calling us to be a part of something more important than the immediate needs? What if God is designing us to be a part of something much bigger than us, globally? You see, there's a time for the immediate, absolutely, and we pay attention. That's what Jesus says. You're always going to have the poor with you. That doesn't mean ignore them. You should do good for them whenever you can. But right now, I need you to focus on this. This is most important right now. And so there's this question, how do you know? How do you make these right choices? That's something we struggle with. It's something we sit on. Because again, she would have that jar on her shelf. Think about this. For years. How many people do you think came to her door? Tragedy. Her friend's husband died. And she thinks, should I cash that in? No, not right now. Not right now. Bad crop year. Things are going down. I always have that. I could use that. No, not right now. No. How many things do you think came up in the course of those years where she could have, but she didn't because she was saving it for something more important than immediate? And what's crazy is that even other Jesus followers opposed her. You notice that? They're arguing with her. What are you doing? This is crazy. Stop it. Don't do it. It doesn't make sense. It's not practical. This is a bad investment. Can I tell you something? In a certain sense, any money you give to the church is a bad investment. In a certain very financial sense. Because you would give money, you put it in the plate, or, right? We've had land donated to us that we use for missions. In one sense, that was a terrible fiscal move for those people. It's a terrible fiscal move for you every time you throw something in there. Because there's no guarantee that in this life, this is going to have any ROI for you. Other than you're going to make sure that the lights stay on. There's some benefit. But what if that wasn't the goal? What if you weren't looking on return on investment right here, right now? What if there was something more important than that? Again, this is more than just money. This is your life. You're spending your life here, right now. And for some of us, it's not because we're really dedicated. For some of us, it's not because we really want to be. Some of us are made to be here. That's okay. I still love you. Some of us are just saying, I really like it. It's nice to sing. It's nice to be a part of it. And we see some benefit coming back. That's not bad. But we're investing our life and our time and our energy and our money and our relationships in each other, in what God is doing here. In a certain sense, you could be out there doing something different, but I thank you for elevating the important above the immediate. I imagine this hypothetical where she didn't give it to Jesus. And the amount of regret that would come later, realizing that she missed that opportunity. That she had this chance to use it, but she didn't. And there's always a good reason you can back yourself up with. I've seen this. You've seen this too, where someone makes a horrible mistake, someone has giant regrets, but they just walk back from it. You know what? It's all right. Things are going to turn around. Things are going to be different. Optimism is good. I'm an optimist to a fault. It's bad. Sometimes I get myself in the worst situations and I'm like, you know what? This is going to be great. It's blind optimism sometimes. But optimism can be important, but it can also steer us away from feeling the remorse that we should. And saying, I missed that opportunity and I won't have it again. That's uncomfortable. We don't want to be uncomfortable. It's hard. We don't want to feel that. So many people die and leave tons of money for their kids to fight about. We've seen that. So many people have really close, good relationships with people, good friendships, years in the making, decades in the making, and they never use it to share the gospel. So many people spend copious amounts of time on their sport or polishing that talent, getting ahead in that field, and never once do they stop and ask, God, how do you want me to use this? For some of us, I think we don't ask that because we're scared of how he might answer us. We're scared he might say, I don't want you to use that. I want you to give that up. I'm not saying leaving kids, let me clarify this because I'm going to get an email. I'm not saying leaving money to your kids is wrong, okay? I'm not saying having hobbies is a sin. I'm asking if you're using all that you have, all of it, for what's most important. How much of your life is dedicated to being successful at things that matter? And how much are you setting yourself up for failure there? Verse 8 says that she did all that she could. She did all that she could. That little phrase, that's my translation. She did all that. Yours, if you're using NIV or NET or NASB, you might have something like she has done what she could, or she did what she could. In the literal translation of that is what she had she did. That's the most literal, straightforward translation. What she had, she did. And I wonder if anybody would say that about you. What they had, they did. They didn't waste it. They didn't fail with any of that. And you're like, well, yeah, that's easy, because immediately what we do is we think of the person with more money than us, right? And then we think of the person with more time than us. And then we think, and we make this excuse, well, what they have, they could certainly use. No. You might have an illness that God wants you to use for him. It's put you in contact with people, in relationships with people, in certain places, at certain times, that you never would have been if you didn't have this struggle. And he's asking you to use that. You know, your marriage might be tough. Are you using that struggle to show the gospel, to show how God can heal, to show what it's like to sacrifice, even though no one's sacrificing for you? You might have so many struggles that God has said, I want you to use that for me. You see how this is so much bigger than money. It's more than that. It's your whole life. To pour it out, just like she did. And you say, no, but that's what's going to get me there. No, that's my path. No, that's my safety net. No, that's my this. No, I trust in this thing here. And he's saying, don't. It'll let you down. There's more than that. And some of you guys are like, that's crazy. You probably wouldn't say that because you're in church. You're not allowed to call me crazy in church. But you're thinking it. Why would I give up my most profitable years? Why would I dedicate that thing that I've spent so long building? Why would I do that? No, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because you don't know Jesus. You're like, whoa, that's offensive. But think about it for a minute. You don't know all the good that he has for you, all the goodness that he has shown, and the promises of how he's going to use that to make it matter, to make it mean something. He can take your pieces and build it into something so much bigger. And you're like, you either don't know that or you don't trust that. Think about this lady. She gave everything she had, which at the end of the day is a jar of oil. That's it. That was her big thing, a jar of oil. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're like, yeah, but look at me. And it's like, yeah, what do you have? Some numbers on some paper? Some acres? Some talents that are fading? Life that's slipping away? What do you have that God couldn't do without? He doesn't need it. But he wants your heart. And if he has our heart, then we pour these things out to him, and he makes them matter. Now this lady's oil, that if she would have kept to herself, this perfume that she would have kept to herself, would have no effect on us. 2,000 years later is being used to change how you think about your whole life. Imagine what God could do if you gave him what you had. If you poured it out. This passage leaves us with extreme contrast. You have this unnamed, quiet, humble, sacrificial follower. And you have these loud, abrasive, selfish people. Some of them are actually evil. Which, remember that next time someone's criticizing your generosity. And at the center of it is Jesus. Jesus with this grace overflowing. When she steps out in faith, he protects her. When she's crazy obedient, he defends her. When she gives it all, he honors her. And all of that, which she could have hoarded to herself and been extremely successful at something that didn't matter, she gave to him, and he made it matter. He used her in a way that it's beautiful. And it's gone around the world and will continue to go around the world. And if you're anything like me, you look back and you realize how often you've been so successful at so many things that don't matter. That can be hard. Like, that can weigh on you. But the grace of Jesus meets us there. And that he died. He gave up his life to save us failures. He lived a successful life against sin. He came back to life, victory, success over death. And he offers that to us. It says, if you turn from those failures, ask for forgiveness. He'll welcome you into the family. There's trust that we give. We say we trust that over what I feel right now, over what other people have told me. I trust in who you are, in what you have done, in the goodness that you're offering. And his plan, get this is his plan, to take failures like you and like me and turn them into the greatest success stories. Will you trust him with that? Will you pour it all out for him? Because when you do, it's a joy. It's a joy to do all that you can with all that you have. For who's most important? Let's pray. Lord, we come to you with hearts that honestly feel some regret of opportunities that we've missed, of things we've let slide. Lord, we come with confession that we have not been the generous, sold out, extravagant, sacrificial people that you've asked us to be, like you have shown us how to be. Lord, some of us come to you realizing that we've lived our whole life in failure. And God, we're sorry. God, we need you. Father, please forgive us. Thank you for Jesus, for sending him to live a successful life, a life of faithfulness to you and to your commands, that he is holy and good. And when he died, it wasn't because he failed, it was because we have. Lord, work in our hearts. Change us. Make us into your people with your heart. Strengthen us where we're weak. Lord, we know that you don't leave us out there because we've done so bad, but you come alongside us. We can answer that fear that says, aren't you a failure? And we can say, no, we're a child of God. Give us that courage and that boldness. Lord, drive us into your arms. And Father, for those of us today who are struggling with this, we don't quite understand it. Father, I ask that you help them to seek out understanding, that they pray, asking for it, that they ask questions, that they're humble enough to say, I don't get this, I need help. And Lord, may this church be a welcoming, loving family that cares, that pours it all out for you. In Christ's name, in the power of the Spirit, amen.